Grace, good peace to God who is, who was, and who is to come. I have mentioned this before, and some of you might even be personally aware of it, so I apologize. But I have to admit that I am not the best or most courteous of drivers around. I readily yell at other drivers when they do things that I deem to be stupid or dangerous, like passing me on the right-hand side or riding on my bumper when I'm already going 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. Although I have to say that speed limits are really just for those people who think safety is important. But the one that really gets me, and it happened again yesterday afternoon. Driving north on 15, some of you are aware of the 15-581 interchange, in which PennDOT, in their infinite wisdom, did not make into a complete cloverleaf. Oh no, if you're going north on 15 and you want to go north on 581, you do not exit to the right. No, you have to make that left-hand turn. And how many times, like yesterday afternoon, some person suddenly realizes, oh, I need to be over there. So do they go to Camp Hill Mall and turn around and then get on? No, they go to the middle lane and they stop and they put their turn signal on. Sorry. Sometimes I'm not a real nice guy behind the wheel. And I usually have to remind myself to use all of my fingers when I wave at people. Every now and then, though, I am able to catch myself, to come to myself and stop myself from doing something far too rude or obnoxious or even dangerous. Not always, not by a long shot, but sometimes I can come to my senses, realize the stupidity of what I am about to do, or might even already be in the midst of doing, and make myself stop. And it's that coming to senses, coming to myself, that caused me to relate to our gospel reading today. Now you might not have caught it. I know in all the times that I've read this parable, I usually have sped right past it, but this time, it kind of jumped right out at me. So let me attempt to show you. We're all pretty much familiar with the prodigal son story, right? Or at least we think we are. Jesus is telling this story, this parable, to illustrate a point. The lead-in to the story, many Pharisees and scribes are complaining about Jesus behind his back. I know, there's a surprise. You didn't know that Lutherans were in the Bible, did you? So they're griping with one another, and they're saying, this fellow, he welcomes sinners and he eats with them. It's like the Pharisees and scribes are purposely trying to tick Jesus off. But they are stating fact. Jesus has the audacity to allow tax collectors and sinners to come into his presence and listen to him. Now you maybe understand sinners, but what's the deal with the tax collectors? Well, I realize that April 15th is coming up, so we might all have our own opinion of tax collectors, but in first century Palestine, tax collectors did not work for the local government, they worked for the occupying government. They worked for the Romans. And the only way that tax collectors got paid is by gouging their fellow citizens. And usually, tax collectors lived a rather extravagant lifestyle. Sinners, of course, well now, who wants to be around sinners? Their sin might rub off on those who are pious, those who deem themselves, like the Pharisees and scribes, to be holy, righteous, and above reproach, or at least in their own minds. So here Jesus is surrounded by these two groups, sinners and tax collectors, Pharisees and scribes, and he gives them a story. There's a small businessman, has two kids, both of whom will eventually inherit the company. But the younger one can't wait until the old man dies, because he's got stuff to do, places to go, he's got big dreams, maybe probably some partying to do along the way. So he asks for his share. For some bizarre reason, Dad gives it to him, and off the son goes. And he ends up in a short amount of time squandering everything. It's like he's purposefully trying to tick his father off. And worse, as soon as his money runs out, the recession hits, along with a whole bunch of floods, huge fires, food is scarce, jobs are non-existent. He is in some really deep stuff. And the only means of employment he can find is something that is almost completely reprehensible to him. Almost. He does it, but he hates doing it. And while he's in the midst of this abhorrent job situation, he comes to himself. He gives himself, the Gibbs dope slap on the back of the head, and he says, "At my father's business, even the lowliest worker has it better off than I do. If I go home, I can hire on into whatever position they're willing to give me, and I will be better off than what I am right now. And I'll say to my father, Father, I'm sorry. I was foolish and frivolous and stupid. I do not deserve to be called your son, but I need food to eat and a decent place to sleep. I will do anything. Please, just give me a job." So he walks away from his disgusting job, and he hoofs it back home. And he starts walking up the road to his old man's business. Dad sees him coming up the road, and Dad goes out to meet him, and Dad does not tell him to get off of his property, because that's what I would have done. Dad does not slam the door shut in his face. No. Dad sees this son who has taken half of the father's wealth and done who knows what with it. Dad sees him walking up the road. Dad hitches up his pants, sprints down the road, runs to his son to embrace him. Now, I got to give the son credit, because he's prepared, and he's going to do what he said. And he stops Dad. He says, "Father, I am a total idiot. I do not deserve to be called your son." But before he can get any farther along, Dad has embraced him, he's kissed him, he's called to one of the other employees, "Get the best robes, get my son clean clothes, get him some food, get him some shoes, and then let's start a feast. We're going to celebrate because my son is home." Except, and this is kind of where real life kicks in, and that we know that Jesus is speaking the truth, because the older brother hears and sees all this, and big brother is pissed. Older brother does what I'm fairly certain would be the John Brock reaction had my sibling done something like this, because we all know from my driving habits that I'm a mean and vengeful person. Older brother becomes angry and refuses to take part. Dad goes out to talk to older brother, but he doesn't want to hear any of it. Dad talks about forgiveness and rejoicing and starting over, and the story ends. We never find out what happens next. Did you catch that part in the middle? It wasn't even a full sentence. It was the first half of verse 17, and I've sped over it so many times. But when he came to himself, have you ever come to yourself? Have you ever been in the middle of something? Maybe doing something that you love, maybe doing something that you don't care about, maybe doing something you don't even know why you're doing it. Whatever it is, have you ever been doing something and suddenly realized that what you were doing was not what you wanted to be doing, not what you should be doing, and you can't figure out why you're doing it in the first place? almost like maybe you were purposely trying to tick yourself off. Did you give yourself the Gibbs dope slap to the back of the head? Now, when this happened to the younger son, to fix his situation, after he came to himself, he went home. What is it that drags you down? Where is that place that you might find reprehensible? It might be anything. Maybe it's your job that's sucking the life out of you. Maybe it's your best friend who's not letting go of some crappy situation that the two of you got into. Maybe it's your stupid driving habits or personal finance. Or maybe it's an addiction to, well, an addiction to anything. Whatever it is, what is it that's keeping you from home? And by home here, I don't necessarily mean the place that we grew up. Or by home here in this story, I mean home is the place where we feel safe. Home is the place where we feel loved. And if you don't have a place like that in your life, you need to find it. Because it's in that place that God speaks the loudest to us. It's in that place that we can best hear God. It's in that place, wherever that place is, that God runs to meet us. It's in that place where Christ says, "Get this child clean clothes and let's start a feast for this my child." Yes, Christ calls us my child. My child was dead and is now alive. My child was lost and is now found. Come and meet Jesus, who welcomes us